Okay, this is a video. I've just been told that people don't want to listen to my shit all day long, but I'm going to make another video. I haven't made one for a long time. And this is a video about when you make an input sheet for a model, how to find the dependents in a model. And I thought this would be a pretty easy thing to do. So if we look at a few of the inputs, oh shit, another phone call. Okay, so this cell here has I hope, it has a dependent. The dependent is somewhere else in the sheet. Actually, let's make this cell, this formula, instead of being E4, let's take that off. So now this cell only has this dependent. This cell, can't get the formulas right, the person I'm working with, has a dependent in the same cell. Now, the problem with making a macro and marking these dependents, the problem with that is when you go to another cell. It's this one that's a difficult one. This stuff, if it goes to the same cell, that's just so easy. But the ones that go to another cell are difficult. So on this one, instead of, this one is, let's make this 40. Right now, this one, this one has another dependent. I'm going to make this one, and somebody's slamming the door when I'm trying to make a video. That's typical. Okay, this one has no, this one now has a dependent that goes to another sheet. This one has another dependent that goes to another sheet. Okay, and now I'm going to get down to this one finally. And this one has no dependence. This one has no dependence. So what I want to do is make a coloring the sheet and show you the cells with no dependence. And I'm going to show you how to program this in VBA. But before that, I'm just going to use the generic macros. Now, this generic macros is a file I work on. I work on with a lot of people who apparently have been told I'm just a sleazy, idiotic person who does nothing but Excel, and I get obsessed about these colors, and I only care about coloring sheets in Excel, and that's very, very true. Okay, so you can download this generic macro from here, but I gotta tell you, I always thought this finally would be finished. Finally, years ago, I thought it would be finally finished, but I change it all the time. So you kind of, if you want to see the new stuff, you got to go here, and I also put the generic macros in this file. Okay, it's here, and I put it in a couple. I'm sorry about the background noise, but I can't help it. Uh, the so now let's show you kind of how it works a little. Come on. Okay, people are purposely making it. All right, so if you go to this input section of the cells, just the input sections of the cells, there's a little thing that says no mark cells with no dependence. Now, I am not quite finished with this, okay? But for now, let's not put that there. So if we don't put that there, and you just press color the sheet, okay, I put a little column B title column in there, and we've got some of this now. Oh God, this one is a link to another cell. So this actually came from this sheet. Okay, I press the Control and square bracket, and let's see this one. If we go to the trace dependence, I'm just making. Oh no, let's do this one. Trace dependence. Another one that goes to another sheet. Trace dependence. Okay, let's, on this one, let's take and make this one equal to just the 50, and this one equal to the, just this plus this. So now that cell that I just showed you doesn't have a dependent. Okay, now if you press Control Alt C and go to our generic macros again, and you click on this one that says mark cells with no dependence. Now what I'm going to do is show you exactly how to do this in just a minute. And you press color the sheet. Okay. And now it marks these cells. Now I haven't kind of finished. I'm going to have to put a new version up so you can mark these cells in different colors and all these. These are the ones that don't have a dependent. Of course, if I, and the tricky thing about here is to say, okay, I'm going to say this thing that we transferred from this file now, that comes from here. So now it has a dependent. And if you press Control-Alt-C, it doesn't automatically change, obviously. You have to press the Control-Alt-C again. Okay. And once you do that, then it doesn't have a dependent. It doesn't have a no dependent sign on there, a color, whatever thing. Okay. Now, just to review, I go completely crazy. Now, most of my life, which is a boring shit life, I've been a modeler, not a reviewer of other people's models. In the past months, this is why I haven't made any videos. I've had this torture project where I've had to review other people's models, and oh my God, if you even have a tiny little bit complicated formula and you do not put right here, oh, this is why is this a sum column? I'm going to make this this whatever. I'm going to make this column. If you don't put exactly where you're finding the data for, it is so hard to trace. And if you don't make a sum column, it is so hard to kind of work through the errors. And if you don't make simple and obvious flags and put the flags you really need at the top, like an operating flag, and show what's true or false, it's one whole heck of a lot more difficult to follow. So for me, pressing this one and not just making some colorful kind of whatever piece of art, they got to mean something. I've said this again and again. This is really about the dependent ones. So I'm going to make a little sum column, and this is very nice. It automatically tries to find the sum column for you. Sum columns in column I. And then we can make our flags for formatting, and we make our flags for linking to other sheets, and we put a few rows at the top to make it look a little nice, so you don't sit there wasting a lot of time. And if your client says, I like another color, you can just change all the colors. All right, and I'm going to put a little border around the sum column. All right, and it's going to be a little gray color, and the title column is going to be our default color, and we just press that. And we press Control-Alt-C. Now, the other thing I have been doing, and I've made a video about this just before, so this is kind of new. So now we see that. Oh, God, that stupid true and false. I'm going to change that. Okay. And then okay, just wait. Is it going? Okay, the thing that, by the way, the thing that takes a lot of time is working through other sheets. So now you can see this, and the big deal for me, I'm going to make a couple of other videos about this, is to repeat. Then you can find, once you just have one variable, just use this control and square bracket, and then F5 and go back. All right, and now we have the sum, and now it's a little more clear. And if we want to do the same thing here, just press color the sheet. It doesn't take very long. Once you have decided on all your colors, that's all you do. Okay, I'm going to even put this generic test, this little test sheet up here. And I don't know if you can tell, but it's the thing that's taking a long time is coloring this. And now once you have this, now if you try to run the table of contents without first running a Control-Alt-C. Control-Alt-C. If you try to run that without running a Control-Alt-C, it won't. How in the heck is it supposed to know that it's looking for in these columns to put your little table of contents in? So then once you have this, you just go to the other side. That's the left side instead of the right side, and it makes your little table of contents, and it gets all of these things. Of course, I've done this already. it gets all of these things from the, I'm sorry, from the column B, because that's what's in column B, and it puts your little color codes in and says who saved the file and all this. I can't seem to change this anymore, my name. All right, good. Now, let's now show you the file I kind of worked on to get this. And this button here, this is I'll call this, I'll rename this find dependence, okay? And just like I showed you before, some of these dependents, again, I'm going to show the dependents. Some of them come from the same sheets. Some of them, does this one have a dependent? No, this one has no dependents, okay? And this one has a, again, this one has a dependent, and one of these better have a dependent in another sheet, I hope, because that's the hardest thing to do. This has no dependents. And does this one have some dependents in another sheet? No. Shit. Let's make this one that had no dependents. Let's go over here and put a little formula here, and make this formula this 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 input plus the first one. Okay, so that comes from another sheet, and the reason I'm saying that, that's the hard part of this. Okay, and then this little macro, it just says let's start. Well, it clears everything, and I'll put the end row as 12. Start column, end column is 4, and it goes through one by one, and I do it slowly, and it marks the ones that don't have a dependent. Those two are the ones that don't have a dependent. And let me show you now how it works. Okay, I'm just going to show you the macro and go through that. Okay, the first thing you have to use is those little lines you pressed. Those little lines you pressed when you clicked on that formula thing, they are shapes. And the only way to do this, if you're going to another sheet, is to find those shapes and figure out some way, once you found those shapes, that then, once you found those shapes, then you know it's going to another cell with a dependent. So the first thing I do is I find the existing shapes. This thing here, right here, that's a shape. I don't want to, I could just start over and delete all the shapes. That's what I did. But the better way is to just find how many shapes there are in the sheet. So you have to make a little bit of a dimension. This SHP is shape. I guess you can't call it shape itself. And then you go around and it says each shape in active sheet. So you find the number of shapes first, okay? And then I put in the starting row and the ending row. That's not a big deal. That's what I just put. Now in the generic macros, of course, I have a thing that looks across all the rows and columns for a sheet. That's a little bit tricky to find all those rows. And then I say, look, let's look in all of this stuff. And if there's a formula and it's not an input, skip around it. If it's a text, you don't want to do it either. If it's an arrow, you don't want to do it either. If it's not a number, then you got to go around it. I'm probably totally redundant with this, but we're going to go around each row and each column. Okay. Right now, it's not really going around each column, but what the hell? It's just leaving it in column 4, but this is a test file. Sorry about that. So, and then it's saying, okay, for each cell that we don't go around to, this continue just goes down to here, this continue, and then it just goes to the next row and cycles back. All right, so that's the first thing. Then first we're going to let's clear the arrows. That's a thing I didn't know you could do. And then you can go to each cell and put show dependence. And then that creates a shape. That's the big deal. It creates a shape. Okay, and then after it creates a shape, you can shape. You can count how many shapes you have. Okay, now I put a little weight thing. If I don't put a weight there, it kind of doesn't show you. I thought the weight thing was a little bit cool to do. because I don't have to do the columns really, but let's start with row 4 and go to row 12 and go to 4, 4. Then you can't see it. If I put a little application weight here, and now if I put it a little too much, so where was that thing I just did? Okay, let's wait a little. Let's wait kind of however that is 0.08 seconds or whatever it is. It's probably a lot less than that. Okay, so let's go to 4 and 12 and 4 and 4. What it's doing, I hope you can see the shapes. So that's why I did the little wait thing. I didn't put that in generic macros. It really would slow you down if you used it in the generic macros. Okay, so after we do that, we then here's the tricky part. So then you go around the shapes and if the total number of shapes, here we then count the total number of shapes here. If the total number of shapes is the amount you started with, that's why I did this little thing up here, start shape. I figure out how many we started with, then we don't have a dependent because we didn't add a shape. That's the big trick. That's the big stupid little trick. And then if you don't have a dependent, it skips down here to a little part that says no dependent, and then I just put these colors. Now I should use RGB. I just learned today from Hetty, I should be using RGB, and there's a way in Google you can put in your wonderful colors, and we can put in the default colors, and we can do all kind of good things, put a bold here and all that stuff. When I used to do colors, I used to get all confused about it, okay? And once you, and of course you can do this with your own sheet. You just have to put your own start rows and columns and stuff in here. Okay, if you don't, if the start shape is not equal to the number of shapes, that means we've added a shape. And then what you want to do is go around and get rid of them after you started them. And then if you have a shape, then just skip around and go to continue. So the whole thing works with kind of finding how many shapes. I had to put an on error because I can't. I deleted all the shapes, and one time it gave me an error. But the whole thing is a little process that seems to work. Now I'm going to do something additional to this. I'm not even finished with this. Well, for now, of course I am. I mean, whatever. But you know, if you go to this one and you want to find out when this line, let's say this line is used in this sheet. Okay, right now you can see it's used in this sheet. But you might want to mark this line. And now this line would have a dependent. And this line might have a dependent. This dependent here, that goes to another sheet. And it also has some other dependents. Sorry for the background noise, who cares? This one has no dependents that go to another sheet. So now we have to come up with a way, if we want to just mark this line that goes to another sheet. That's what some people seem to like. I don't know, my friend Pascal seems to like that. God knows why. Maybe because he's had a bad day. Well, whatever. He likes that. Okay. I don't know why it's so beneficial, but maybe it's good. You can do that with the same process. You just have to figure out which is the one that goes to another sheet and not. Now that's going to take a little bit more, and that's the next thing I'm going to do. But for now, I'm going to stop this video because finally I made a new one. I haven't made it in so long.